Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the fearful avoidants and reparenting their wounded needs. So this is part of a series. If you haven't already, please make sure you go back and watch the very first video in this series where I really describe what wounded needs are all about and where they come from and how they impact us and how they keep our psyche frozen in time to a certain degree at the time that we developed a coping strategy or a mechanism to avoid the pain of an unmet need, okay? This plays a really important role in all of this. But in this video specifically, what we're going to do is talk about the biggest wounded unmet needs of the fearful avoidant, what this feels like and how to recognize them, and then how we can do the work to move beyond this and actually show up for ourselves and reparent these wounded parts of ourselves so that we can heal, grow, thrive, stop sabotaging our relationships if that's what's happening, because this is a big source and reason for why we do this. And if you want to learn a lot more about this, I do have really in-depth courses about needs, reparenting, all sorts of things in the Personal Development School. And we have a 25% off coupon code with you, all one word. I'll put a link in the description box below, and a link on this video, a card on this video. And we also have our lifetime memberships right now on sale just for our launch period or launch month, that we just put all these lifetime memberships together. And so they're 50% off. That will be in the description as well. So let's talk about this. What are the biggest wounded unmet needs of the fearful avoidant attachment style individual, and how can we reparent them? So first, if you haven't seen the previous video, just one principle I want you to deeply understand is that when you have a deeply unmet need, usually you develop some kind of coping mechanism to get that need met. It could be to turn off your emotions around it so you just don't even feel the pain of having it not met, and then distract yourself from it, right? Or get it met in some other really distant form. It could be to have a temper tantrum or to become really needy and cling to people and pull them in. It can be so many different things. But at the time we develop that coping mechanism, especially if it's very strong in relationship to that very unmet need, what ends up happening is we get into a position in our lives and in the relationship to ourselves and others where we are so busy coping from that pain, we never go back and emotionally resolve it. So at the time we make that coping mechanism and then start patterning that in and repeating it, so it becomes a program, we don't really grow up or emotionally grow up really and evolve around that specific area of our lives. So you might notice that when you have these like wounded needs, that you feel young when you're in this space. Like maybe you feel really needy and small or young, or maybe you feel childlike or desperate, or you'll feel that there's these really strong emotions, and those are actually coming from like your 5-year-old version of yourself, and you have this hard shell of this coping mechanism you developed that prevents you from going back in, looking at the roots of why you have that temper tantrum or that neediness or that coping mechanism, whatever it might be in the first place, resolving it at the root, and then allowing yourself to sort of emotionally grow up in that area because your conscious mind has gone back and reparented your subconscious mind, so to speak. So let's talk about how that specifically applies to the fearful avoidant. Well, some of the biggest wounded needs are to feel like you're safe and you can trust. Now notice what happens to you when you feel like you're unsafe or you can't trust somebody in a relationship. You might have these like childlike coping mechanisms, like instead of going and communicating about it or trying to share a boundary or communicate about why you can't trust or resolve it, or just recognize, this isn't a healthy person, and cut ties in a healthy way through communication. Maybe you just shut down and just push away altogether, or cut off, or get really angry, or and what those things come from are the lack of those needs being met in so many different forms, and feeling like that your cup is filled in that relationship to yourself. And so when that's taken away further from outside of you, it feels debilitating. So to feel like you're safe and you can trust, some other really big unmet needs that create some wounding are the way you tend to others to feel like you are tended to, if that makes sense. So like this unmet need to feel deeply seen, understood, heard, worthy of love, and to feel like somebody will give that to you the way that you've probably given that to others. And you probably had to give that to others as sort of a survival mechanism to manage in your environment and to be hyper attuned to others. But usually that's something that's not met within you. And so when that further is being expressed, like that's taken away from you, or it's, somebody's really not meeting that in some form. So somebody's like literally not seeing you, not understanding you, not making you feel worthy of love, making you feel like you don't matter, you're not important, or you're unwanted. You usually feel this like really profound point of pain around that, because it's a representation. It's touching on a big area of lack in your subconscious mind that's been there and has been a part of your reality and programming for a while. So when somebody pushes that button, you feel a lot more pain than if you felt totally seen, heard, and understood by so many people in your life, including yourself, and then somebody did that to you. It would be a bit of a different experience if you see that. So one last really important piece of unmet need for a fearful avoidant is feeling like you are free and autonomous in your world. And I'll put a video out later about fearful avoidance and novelty and why they tend to crave novelty so much, and why it's a common part of the fearful avoidance programming. Not for all, but for a good portion, and where that comes from, because it's very much related to this. Now, your wounded child needs are basically all of the places that you feel needy, but also especially the places that you feel deeply or profoundly triggered. The fearful avoidant leaning anxious, you might resonate more with some of the neediness, but the profound triggers, like so much emotion and so many feelings that feel overwhelming, that's more like the fearful avoidant, okay? And this is going to be your expression of wounded needs. When you have wounded needs that are trying to get your attention, you're going to feel really strong emotion around them, okay? And that can be things like anger, frustration, helplessness, resentment, hurt, and really it's like hurt, abandonment, fear, anger, those sorts of things should really resonate. You're probably going to feel a lot of those emotions in your chest, your stomach when they come up, these sorts of things. And these are usually for the fearful avoidant expressed as the places that you want to push people so far away. And usually you're trying to push the pain away, not the person away. But sometimes the subconscious mind has a hard time telling the difference in the moment because it's overlaying that pain onto that experience and associating it with the person or experience, associating that pain with the person or experience in front of you. And so when you're trying to push people really far away, usually you're just protecting a wound or a wounded need, like a need that's been in really, really strong lack, and somebody's magnifying and making you recognize that because they've been a catalyst in some form that's brought that lack and brought those painful feelings stored in your subconscious mind associated with that lack to the surface. So the places you feel like you're really angry, you need to shut down, you need to push people away. You feel unsafe because you feel like you can't trust, but then you'll usually just shut down. So those sort of go hand in hand. The places you feel that you can turn very cold, or the places that you feel really hurt, profound hurt, and then maybe anger on top of it. But if you pay close attention, underneath that anger is really a lot of pain and like a stinging hurt. All of these places are usually representations of lack within the self and deeply unmet needs in your childhood, maybe in a recent relationship that programmed those unmet needs in your adult life, but would have to be a fairly lengthy relationship or a fairly impactful relationship in order to do so. And really what it's showing you is that these wounds are still alive within you. And so when somebody else sort of mirrors them to you or treats you in a way that you've been treating yourself without meaning to, it's that much more painful, but it's also that much more important to recognize and to do the work on, because all of that pain means something. All of that pain means there's something within you that really needs to be loved and brought back into the whole and integrated and really reparented. So what these things are communicating are about deeply unmet needs that you basically still have alive in the relationship to yourself. And if these things weren't alive in the relationship to yourself, so for example, in the context of the needs we're talking about, if you did trust yourself completely. Now, where do fearful avoidants not trust themselves completely? Usually to express themselves to others, to keep the relationship to themselves and have relationships with others simultaneously, to not betray themselves or their own boundaries, to speak up before they get to the place of anger. So a lot of fearful avoidants are great at speaking up when like they're in survival mode and like they're super triggered. But usually the 99 times before that 100th time, and usually it's not actually that many, it's like the 7 or 9 before the 10. But all those times prior, you didn't speak up in real time, didn't assert yourself, tune into yourself, all these things. So you betray your trust. And then when somebody betrays your trust outside of you, it's that much more painful, usually because it was originally a wound from somebody else. Then you enacted that wound in relationship to self, because wherever we have imprints from others, we then have programs. And so we're likely to keep reenacting the things we receive from others. And then when somebody else does this to us, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, this is so painful. And how dare somebody? And the reason it's so magnified is because it's like, I always use this expression, but it's like the straw that broke the camel's back, right? It's like, it feels that much more difficult because this already happened. You're sick of feeling this way in relationship to self, and you're not necessarily consciously registering it. But then somebody shows that to you or mirrors that to you outside of you, and it's really, really excruciating. So what this is communicating to you is something really important, which is you have to clean up those things within yourself first. People meeting these things outside of you will not suffice to heal the problem, okay? It will feel good, but it will create usually an addictive attachment, codependency, over-reliance, and then usually self-sabotage long-term, because our subconscious feels out of our comfort zone, changing patterns, and inconsistency in those patterns, and basically anything unfamiliar. Our subconscious will work to sabotage to a certain degree because it wants familiarity, because familiarity equals safety and safety equals survival. So if we're used to people betraying us or betraying our trust, if we're used to betraying ourselves, and then somebody comes in and is so loving and wonderful, sometimes we either don't find that person attractive, or sometimes we are not feeling like we deserve and are worthy of receiving, or it's safe to receive. And so we accidentally push that person away. So here's what you can ask for yourself in these contexts, okay? Around these deep wounds, where do I betray the trust in relationship to self? Where do I not see myself, hear myself, deeply allow myself to be understood? Where do I not make myself feel wanted, like time with myself feel wanted, really? Or where do I make myself not feel worthy of love? And that could be in your inner criticism. That could be in putting yourself down. That could be in putting yourself last in all of your relationships, not prioritizing self-care and self-loving habits. It can be in so many different forms, but it's your job to take a look and really see, okay, and take inventory and do that work, because that is the process of healing these things. And it requires intimacy with self, like really evaluating, really looking. A really great thing too, and this is sort of a side note, but it's really great to track your behaviors. It's really great to go through your day, morning till evening, reflect and be like, what did I do? And actually write out like all the behaviors, point by point, that you had, like not answering the phone because somebody was, whatever it might be, like just take a look. And then that helps you take inventory and understand yourself and your behaviors. And then you can be like, what is this telling me about my wounds or my unmet needs, or, myself in general as a human? Anyways, so then you can ask yourself, once you've seen these things, what do I deeply desire from somebody else so badly, especially when these wounded needs are active? Like, what would it look like for me to have somebody meet these needs, basically? So would it look like somebody, being like, I understand you, I see your feelings, your feelings are appropriate. It's okay to feel the way you feel. Of course you feel that way after everything you've been through and all the triggers you've had. Like, it's been tough. It's okay to be imperfect. And let's support you in becoming healed and the better version of yourself. Like, what is that what you would want somebody to say? Like, what would you want somebody to say to you? Or how would you want them to act towards you? And then it's your job to enact these things in relationships to self. That can be through writing letters to yourself, saying similar things. It can be through adjusting your internal dialogue to make space for self-compassion and humanization of the self. It can look like so many different things, but that's where you get to really tune into this and pick your individual work. And until you become talented at doing this, you will hunger for this outside of you, and you will simultaneously, because of a different part of your subconscious, it's like this is unfamiliar, you'll hunger for it and you will likely sabotage it at the same time. And it will become this vicious cycle, okay? And you can ask yourself this question too: why do I push somebody away because I assume a need will be unmet? It's really important to tune into that. And what is this need I'm assuming won't be met? And how can I work to meet that within the relationship to myself? And then what you want to do is you want to do like some serious strategies to step up, show up, and meet this need. And it's a necessity that you recognize that any painful, really, really strong patterns will usually get you the opposite of what you're actually wanting and desiring. So I hope this makes sense. This is like an intro to reparenting. I have a really in-depth course around this inside of the school. We're also going to be launching in the next few weeks some different guided processes where I'll actually take people through like a guided meditation type of scenario, but with steps that they can go through so they can actually like think through problems in their mind as we're going through a guided step-by-step how to emotionally regulate, how to reparent, how to self-soothe, all these different guided processes that are actually going to help you reprogram your subconscious as well. So all that's inside of the school. You can check for the membership sales and discounts in the description box below. And I would love to hear any other points or shares or basically things you want to see in this series or anything related to this in the future, because I think it's such an important and valuable topic for so many people. So hopefully this was helpful for you today. Thank you so much for being here and for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're getting a lot of value out of this series, and I will see you in the next video.